I've been really low lately, and I've been afraid of sinking into depression. And I came up with this idea, which I think I mentioned in my last video, about this Eeyore to Tigger energy boost idea I had. And one of the things that helps my energy is journaling. Yesterday I did a lot of journaling. I've been in this bad burnout now for a couple of years. So I wrote loads of pages in my mental health journal. So I decided I would do my Tigger List. The Tigger List of things that help me to bounce back. Written Tigger List in orange. Right, so let's think about some things that will go on my Tigger List. So to get energy going again, you've got to change the mood. Imagine you're kind of pretty low, which I was physically and emotionally. So one of the things that helps me to feel better is movement. Got to start slowly. So you just move slowly, stretch, and then we can go from there. Dance to a favourite song. Doesn't have to be a fast song. Then we could probably do some yoga. If going outside really helps too. So one of the things I like to do when I'm really down is to go and do something in the garden, especially something that's kind of quite mindless, like mowing, when you can maybe listen to a podcast while you're doing it, but still get the benefit of that movement. There's something about repetitive movement you don't have to think about, putting one step in front of the other, that really helps. Like if you're doing something like weeding and stuff, and you've got to think about it. You want something you don't have to think about. So mowing is perfect, and or housework, cleaning the floor, things you don't have to think about. I actually cleaned some windows. You don't want to be thinking. You don't want to be working out, is that a weed or not? Needs to be something that's pretty mindless once you started doing it. You can listen to a podcast or an audiobook while you're doing it, if that helps. But I think for me, it's that movement, that movement that you're not thinking about, like walking, that really helps the body, and that momentum. So I write all these things down. Movement, walking, momentum. My daughter's got one of those walking pad things, and so she can watch stuff, and I guess she can watch stuff and walk at the same time. I kind of have a thing about it. I don't really like these electronic energy devices. I like to properly walk and things, but I don't know how people manage to work and walk on those things. Like you'd see people have them on a desk and they walk and focus. I couldn't do that. She watches things and uses it, and I can kind of see that. But I'd rather like roll around on my bouncy ball. Oh yeah, my what do you call them? Those Swiss ball things. I roll around on that. There. So there's all these things. That's to do with movement. So that kind of physical energy. Physical energy raises mental and emotional energy. And these are very small steps. And I think that's probably one of the first things. You need to really actually get physical movement going. And I said, it doesn't have to be slow. And don't think about school or PE or anything like that. Think about slow, gentle. And honestly, it's just taking a few steps that you don't have to think about. Yeah, small steps can give you a lot of momentum. I'm writing this down because I have to remind myself. That's what's so good about journaling. Other things that help are nice things to look at, things around you that you love, like my desk. You need to be invited. You need something that pulls you in, something warm and inviting that makes you want to be in a space. Again, when you're low, it takes quite a huge spark. So that initial spark has got to pack quite a punch to get you moving. This is the very beginning of this change in the flow, these things I'm talking about today. So we've got the movement, and then we've got the distraction, and then the kind of journaling thing. So the other thing is, if you can go straight into it, if you feel like you can pick up a pen and doodle, even if you just doodle, if you're on this channel, you probably do like stationary thing, just doodling, which is something I do mindlessly all the time. It's almost like a stim thing. I've done it all my life. That can really help you. That can move you along. And for me, looking at my pens, holding a journal can make you want to write in it. So holding a fountain pen. So my journals give me an energy boost, seeing all the gorgeous covers and my pens, and they just boost my energy when I feel really kind of down and out and lowering. But you've got to get into that. You've got to do these really small steps to make yourself move into a better place. You can't kind of just jump in because you haven't quite got the Tigger energy yet. So you have to kind of trick yourself almost. I had always had this way of doing things, which was kind of like going in the back door rather than approach from the front door, brash and loud and ringing the doorbell. I would kind of have this vision of sneaking in through the back door and doing it that approach. So I'm always tricking myself that I'm not doing the thing that I'm doing. And it has worked before. For years and years, I was terrified of doing art, of making art, of doing anything to do with art, because I had a bad experience in my teenage years when I first went to art college, which was the beginning of one of my worst depressions, really. So after that, I just believed that I was useless at art. And funny enough, the experience was nothing to do with me making art. It was to do with what was going on in my life at the time. So I ended up, my firstborn was about 18 months old, and I really needed something for me. And I found a local college that did a day release with 1 day a week and then study from home. And they had a creche. So I used to go there one afternoon a week. And the only course I could get onto at the time was fashion design, which I really had no interest in at then. Well, never really. And it was kind of a sewing thing. So anyway, I went to the kind of meeting, the first kind of introduction to the course, and I said I really felt if there was any other openings or any other courses, would they let me know? And then they got in touch and said the place had come up on this textile art course, which was a lot of kind of art, creative stuff, creative embroidery and everything. So I ended up doing that, and I got a degree in textile art, which was not something I ever wanted to get into, but I did it way more in a more papery kind of arty way. And it got me back into art, but I had to do it by that really kind of convoluted backdoor way. And sometimes when life isn't going how we want and we have to face something we don't want to, you have to do it in either that way or through slow steps. Like if you don't want to get out of bed, you just stick a foot out and you just do it slowly until you've got that and build up that momentum. Read something. So reading a book, it can distract you from your current mood. It can move you to another place mentally, emotionally, which is important. The thing is, we're trying to get out of the rut we're in now. We're trying to get away from. We're trying to get out of it, and anything helps. So it can move you to another place. It can trigger things like my journaling yesterday, or spark. Shall we say spark? The word trigger, I don't actually like that word. It can spark a journaling session, or anything that comes up in the book. Or maybe it's something art or something you want to do. So reading is another really good way to do it. Sometimes I'm reading something and I'll trigger a memory or a feeling. That happened yesterday. I was reading a book, Shy Creatures by Claire Chambers. Claire Chambers is another author I really love their writing. A lot of the characters in Claire Chambers' books give me that Ellen Oliphant feel, that, the Gail Honeyman book. I love that book. I really strongly relate to characters like that. And the character called Helen in Shy Creatures reminds me of Ellen Oliphant. There's one scene in the book where she's visiting her niece who's just had her 16th birthday. And this is set in 1964, but I was a teenager in the mid to late 70s. So things were slightly different, but not too much. It was a post-war era. Life had a very, very different feel then. But Helen, who's 34, is visiting her niece who's just had her 16th birthday. She takes her a late birthday present. And her parents are very kind of dismissive. Like then, parents didn't take notice of children like they do now. They didn't take notice of teenagers or consider feelings. They just thought, oh yeah, you're going to secretarial college, and in this case, an art college was kind of woo-woo. It wasn't a done thing. And the child, the 16-year-old, didn't even get a choice. They weren't even classed as a 16-year-old. They were kind of classed as a child who did as they were told. But Helen sees it very differently, and she does treat her like a young adult. Helen's an art teacher, but she works in a psychiatric unit. And it's like when she did this visit to her niece, I just went right back, and it triggered all these feelings in me of when I was a teenager and how I felt. And it wasn't anything to do with the teenager in the book, really. It's just the scenery, what's going on, the way the bedroom is and everything. All those things triggered my thoughts. And I suddenly realised, I think my life was pretty much stunted back then. I almost feel like I was pushed into life and being an adult before I'd even learned how to be a child, let alone a teenager. And I wrote pages and pages and pages about this. And it does help. You can't change what's happened in the past, but I think you can try and reframe it and find a way of bringing it into your your life now. It's pretty hard when you get to 60 and you're trying to be a teenager again. But you could maybe reclaim some of that energy. There's got to be a way of getting back things that you were never really allowed to know because of life circumstances. And because of my autism, which was long undiagnosed, and ADHD and things, I was just slow to catch up. Everything seemed to happen a lot slower for me than it did for other people. My sister, who's 18 months younger than me, was way more worldly and ahead in the social and getting into boys and all that stuff than I was. I was intelligent, but I was kind of a real little bookworm, and I was had socially very, very stunted, I guess. So I've had a lot of melancholy. I'm trying to reclaim this energy, this kind of bounce, some kind of... I'm going to stop here because I think, although it doesn't feel like a lot, I think that's quite a lot of things. There's quite a lot of movement coming on there. And I want to see if you come up with any things that help you, because I like the way that things can be a two-way conversation. The thing about YouTube videos is you really want to... For me, it's about community. And we have got a great little community here, I think. A very small channel, but... So let me know anything you can think of that you would put on your Tigger list. The slow steps, the very small things that will move you from one place to another when you're really, really low, and just get you by, stepping up a little bit from the Eeyore doldrums to the Tigger bounce. I do love Eeyore, don't get me wrong. This is no dissing Eeyore here. And I think everyone, if you don't know who Eeyore and Tigger are, they're from A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh. And if you haven't read that, well, I don't know where you've been all your life, to be honest. Okay, I will see you soon. I hope that was useful, and I really do hope that we can get some chat going, some conversation about this, because I really like to know what other people do. Bye for now.